Good afternoon from London. It's a particularly bleak, grey, and cold afternoon here in London on the first day of February. And hello to all dear comrades, friends, and supporters from me, Dr. Dermot Hudson, the chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche idea, chairman of the Korean Friendship Association of the UK, an official delegate of KFA for the UK, and of course the owner of this very self-same channel, Songam 007, the militant voice of Songam and Juche in the UK, defending people's career with no ifs or buts. And it's because we defend people's career with no ifs or buts that today we are making this video refuting some rather nasty and slanderous anti-DPRK propaganda about the flag of the DPRK. And a couple of people are attention to a certain video and asked us to do some kind of refutation of it. And the video in question is actually from a channel that I had never ever heard of before called Left-Handed Asians, which appears to be some sort of trendy tourist channel, probably aimed at bourgeois yuppies or something. It's certainly a very pro-South Korean channel. I think it's probably a South Korean behind it. And the video in question was titled "A Soviet Bureaucrat Designed North Korea's Flag," and this was broadcast on the 24th of January. And you will notice that instead of calling People's Korea by its proper title, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK for short, that they actually call it North Korea. And with the sources they cite for their video, they're all South Korean sources. They're all like official South Korean propaganda sources. And also, I see on the list the infamous Lankov, who is a paid academic propagandist of the South Korean puppet regime, who teaches at South Korean private university, and he's also part of the NK News gang. And of course, NK News is the notorious CIA front publication, which is also funded, as has been shown, by the US Defense Department and US State Department. But of course, they might be looking forward to having their budgets cut by the new Trump regime in the USA, or maybe their spending will be scrutinized by the new US spending czar, the far right Elon Musk. Anyway, that's perhaps another issue. And the basic thrust, or the underlying theme of this video, is basically reworking an old propaganda myth about the DPRK, namely that it was set up by the Soviet Union, or it was a creation of the Soviet Union, or dependent on the Soviet Union, or a replica of the Soviet Union, which of course is complete nonsense. And I have refuted this several times. And of course, the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, but the DPRK is still here 34 years later. That these people ignore these kind of realities. And like you say, it's very much a variation on a theme. It's trying to say that the flag of the DPRK was actually created by a Soviet advisor. And this is very malicious slander to try and deny the legitimacy of the DPRK, and portray it as in some way being controlled by the Soviet Union. And basically the core of the video is based around an article by the reactionary South Korean puppet publication, the Donga Ilbo. That was published in an article published in 1993, and also an article from the Russian media from the early 90s in the Yeltsin era. And of course, Yeltsin was a puppet of the US who tried to do all sorts of things to please his US masters. And one of them was fabricating stuff about the DPRK, and also, in particular in regard to the Korean War. Of course, I could make a separate video about this. And the video, again, draws heavily on the testimony of traitors, the so-called Soviet Koreans, in inverted commas, who actually fled from the DPRK. And there's a particular history around this. They were factionalists and flunkyists. They were worshippers of big powers, in this case the Soviet Union. President Kim Il-sung eliminated both factionalism and flunkism, and these factionalists tried to overthrow the leadership of the Workers' Party of Korea, the leadership of President Kim Il-sung, in August 1956. And they did so under the baton of the revisionist Soviet Union. They were clearly agents and pawns of the big power chauvinists in the Soviet Union. And what they wanted to do was to shunt people's career down the route of Soviet revisionism, for the DPRK to introduce some kind of market economy, for the DPRK to do deals with US imperialism, to make peace with US imperialism like the Soviet Union did under Khrushchev. And basically to make the DPRK into a pro-American neutral nation in inverted commas. And these traitors fled to the Soviet Union and went into exile in the Soviet Union. Once Khrushchev was removed from power and replaced by Brezhnev, they tended to be sidelines because Brezhnev wanted, in a half-hearted manner, to repair the damage that Khrushchev had done to the international communist movement by splitting it. So it wasn't really wise or politic to have this gang of traitors hiding out in the Soviet Union, making propaganda against the DPRK. They had the so-called Korean Front for National Salvation in the Soviet Union. And of course, they were proved wrong because the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. And the bulk of these traitors went over to the South Korean puppet side and participated in their propaganda operations against the DPRK. And this story about the DPRK flag is very much a part and parcel of it. And it's really, as I say, it's very much a recycling of old South Korean puppet narratives. That the DPRK was the creation of the USSR and all sorts of rubbish. I noticed the video talks about the DPRK has been under Soviet occupation, and the Soviets occupying Korea, when in fact what actually happened was when the DPRK was founded on the 9th of September 1948, they actually voted to request the withdrawal of Soviet troops, and they were withdrawn from the DPRK. However, US troops remain in South Korea until today, till this very minute that I'm speaking. There are US troops and bases and strategic weapons in South Korea. And what is worse is the poor South Koreans are actually paying, I think, about $1 billion per year for so-called upkeep expenses for the Yankee troops. So in other words, they're paying for the US troops in South Korea to eat and drink at their expense. I mean, that money could be spent on welfare for the South Korean people, for clearing the slums away in South Korea, but it's not. It's going to the US Army for them to spend on luxuries, and that amount is likely to be increased quite a lot under Trump, as he believes that so-called US allies should pay the US more. But anyway, that's an aside. I've refuted the idea that the DPRK was created by the Soviet Union many times. This quickly. People's Korea and the Juche idea are both firmly rooted in the anti-Japanese arms struggle led by President Kim Il-sung. President Kim Il-sung started the anti-Japanese independence struggle when he founded the Down with Imperialism Union in October 1920. Over to arms struggle with the formation of the Korean Revolutionary Army in July 1930, and later the anti-Japanese People's Guerrilla Army in April 1932, which was to become the Korean People's Revolutionary Army in March 1934. President Kim Il-sung outlined the Juche idea in a historic Kowloon meeting. At the historic Kowloon meeting of Korean revolutionary cadres in June 1930, at which he stated, "Experience shows that in order to lead the Korean Revolution to victory, one must go among the masses of people and organize them and solve all problems arising in the course of the revolution, independently on one's own responsibility, in accord with the actual conditions, instead of relying on others." Drawing on this lesson, we regard it as most important to take the firm standpoint that the masters of the Korean Revolution are the Korean people, and that the Korean Revolution should by all means be carried out by the Korean people themselves in a way suited to the actual conditions of the country. End of quotation. He also said, or point that, and I quote, "We should fight the armed struggle with no state backing and no aid from outside." And the Korean People's Revolutionary Army, the anti-Japanese guerrillas, fought in the spirit of self-reliance for 15 long years before the USSR actually joined the war against Japan on the 9th of August 1945. I mean, not a lot of people know that the Soviet Union had actually concluded a neutrality pact with Japan and stayed out of the war with Japan for a long time until August 1945. Korea was liberated by the Korean People's Revolutionary Army and the Soviet Red Army, but with the brunt of fighting being done by the Korean People's Revolutionary Army. And there was also uprisings of the people in many areas. After liberation, a people's government was set up. People's committees were set up throughout Korea, in the south as well. But in the south, these were dissolved by the US occupying forces who invaded South Korea in September 1945, only a few weeks after Korea had been liberated. In the north, the people's committees became instruments of popular rule. A Provisional People's Committee of North Korea, headed by President Kim Il-sung, was established, as well as a People's Assembly of North Korea. The new government of People's Korea was very much based on the People's Revolutionary government that existed in the liberated zones during the anti-Japanese armed struggle in the 1930s. It was not a Soviet government. They didn't copy Soviets. It was a distinctly Korean form of government which carried out land reform and also nationalized industries and created a labor law and a law on sexual equality. You know, it was quite different to the situation in the South, where you actually had direct US military rule for 3 years before they brought the puppet Syngman Rhee back from Hawaii and made him the ruler of South Korea. And as to this rubbish about the DPRK flag being designed by a Soviet, it is nonsense. The DPRK flag looks nothing like a Soviet flag or indeed a Chinese flag, and it is also, I think, different to the flags of the East European socialist countries. It was very much a creation of the Korean people. And I shall briefly read from a book called A Grand Birth that was published in 2018 to mark the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the DPRK. And I was there for the celebrations, and I bought this handy booklet there. And the section is titled Dignified Three-Colour Flag. It was at the third session of the People's Assembly of North Korea, held in November 1947, that the question relating the flag of Korea was presented formally. Presenting at the meeting the question of adopting a constitution, Kim Il-sung gave officials the task of designing the national flag and emblem of the Republic to be founded in the future. They soon began drawing up a design for the national flag, but they found it more difficult than they had expected. They referred to the flags of other countries, but they were not of much help because the ones of other countries were ones with different social systems. They were at a loss from the start for what form the flag should take and what ideological contents it should convey. Kim Il-sung acquainted himself with the situation and gave his opinions. Our national flag should be an absolutely new one, a Korean one that is different from that of any other country in both form and content. It would be a good idea to use three colours, red, white and blue, for the flag. The red symbolising the blood shed by the genuine revolutionaries of Korea, including the anti-Japanese revolutionary forerunners and other genuine revolutionaries of Korea who fought for the freedom and independence of the country. And our revolutionary forces that are rallied firmly around our party, and the white indicating that Korea is a state of a homogeneous nation with a time honoured glorious national culture, and the blue representing the brave stamina of the Korean people who are struggling to achieve socialism and communism and the sovereignty of our republic. The design for the national flag is different from ordinary pictures, so proportions should be taken into account in designing to bring its lawfulness into bold relief. Kim Il-sung's opinions shed a light to the creation of the design of the national flag. The creative workers and officials reflected his opinions on the lines and colours of the design. One day in January 1948, Kim Il-sung called the officials again and acquainted himself with the details of the process of designing the national flag. He learned they chose the three colours of the flag, but they were yet to decide on their proportion, telling them to study the question of completing the design together. He said that as a whole, the red, white and blue colours looked inharmonious, the white and blue colours holding a greater proportion as compared to the red. He added that the overwhelming colour should be the red colour, symbolic of the blood shed by the anti-Japanese revolutionary forerunners and other genuine revolutionaries of Korea who fought for the freedom and independence of the country, and our revolutionary forces rallied around the party. He said that the principle of ensuring the harmony and proportion between the lengths and widths between the colours as a whole should be established, instructing, and it would be a good idea to draw the design by making the red panel the central axis and ensuring symmetrical proportion of the size of white and blue stripes bordering it both above and below. He spread out on his table 3 or 4 sheets of paper, on each of which was a design of the flag was drawn with a pencil and coloured with coloured pencils. Drawing one of them a little forward, he said the proportion showing on it would be the most reasonable and best to look at, and continued. The ratio of the length to the width should be 2:1. Each of the blue stripes lying both above and below in symmetry be about 1/6 of the breadth, and the rest be the red panel lined with the white stripes both above and below it in symmetry. It would be desirable to make the white stripes thinner yet more conspicuous than the present one, and to set the ratio of the white to blue stripes as 1:6. Pointing to the white circle in the centre of the design, he said that a 5-pointed red star should be drawn in it, adding a 5-pointed red star symbolizes the bravery and heroic spirit of our people who always emerge victorious forward. Some people insist drawing a plough on it. It is a silly remark. A plough is nothing but represents the bygone days. If it were a feudal state, it wouldn't matter. But it is never tolerable to draw a plough in the flag of our country, which aspires to be a prosperous and developing democratic, sovereign, and independent state. Mount Pektu and the sun in your design have a certain degree of meaning, but they are not conspicuous in view of the composition. A 5-pointed star is the best in every aspect. Let's draw a red star and a white circle. The white circle is now placed at the center. It would be a good idea to move it towards the hoist until the center of the circle reaches 1/3 of the length of the flag. And when the red star is placed near the hoist, it is possible to demonstrate clearly the mettle and spirit of our people who make advance, winning one victory after another. The officials saw a vivid image of the completed version of the flag design, the flag of Korea, that arouses a beautiful and sublime feeling, with a 5-pointed star, red panel, and the symmetrical blue and white stripes forming a clear contrast to one another. The dignified flag symbolizing the bright future of the DPRK, which will be prosperous under the leadership of Kim Il-sung. In accordance with the decision on enforcing the Constitution of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the first national flag raising ceremony was held on July 10th, 1948. So that is basically the true story of how the DPRK flag was designed, and you will see from it that President Kim Il-sung actually put in a lot of effort and thought into designing the flag. The irony is, I think, with South Korea, is as someone remarked, their flag looks like a Pepsi Cola symbol, and in fact is based on the flag of the old Korean feudal monarchy, the old Korean feudal empire. So I think it's that is symbolic in a way, because it represents the very backward and reactionary nature of South Korea. And it's again, just to reiterate, it's absolute rubbish that the DPRK was created by the Soviet Union and its flag was designed by the Soviet Union. Today, People's Korea is the most independent country in the world. It's not a member of the IMF or World Bank or WTO or World Economic Forum. And unlike South Korea, it doesn't have US troops stationed on its territory. So let's go forward and defend People's Korea with no ifs or buts. Thank you very much for listening to this video today. It's been a bit longer than I planned, but I think it's useful to have more depth. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel Songam 007, please consider subscribing. Hit the subscribe button. And we've also got our affiliated channel, Korean Friendship Association of the UK. You can also buy a number of books explaining the reality of People's Korea and defending People's Korea and explaining the Juche idea and Songam idea. There'll be a link in the description of this video. You can also assist by donating money to KFA UK and to myself. Going to be links in the description. And I think the most important thing in defending People's Korea with no ifs or buts is to participate in our online and real life events. There'll be quite a few of these coming up in the spring, and we're planning a few for February, so please keep your eyes peeled for details of events that will be announced through our social media. Again, thank you for listening. Have a great day wherever you are. Goodbye.